All right, so this one's going to be about life and afterlife. What happens when we die? And so, as you know, I've had supernatural experiences, but I don't think that's all of it. And so that's why I'm on here to explain my beliefs about not accepting or believing that my supernatural experiences are the whole picture. I think there's a lot of room for, even with what happened to me, there's an implication of a lot of room for much more creativity, that is to say, creative solutions for the problem of sin. And the thing is like the way we can determine that would be the case is because we would know that to be the case with ourselves if we have, with our own children. If we're all God's children, then we could trust that He would do for us what we would do for our own kids. We wouldn't do if we were invested in the way they turn out. If the best of us were invested in the way our children turn out, we would love a bad kid as much as we'd love a good kid, and we would be among the best of us, anyways. I don't mean about. I'm not. I don't want to compare bad parents with the good parents. Just the bad kids with the good kids. We want to put them on the same plane. So we want to put the good parents, compare the good parents with God. That they would love a bad kid as much as a good kid, and we would be invested equally in their in the way they turn out for the better. And so we would come up with every creative solution imaginable to make sure of it. And torturing people forever in hell fire is not going to turn anybody out for the better. So, yes, I had an experience of going down there. I was there for a few seconds. Satan was not in there. There was no evil presence there. But before that, I had the experience of going to the outer universe. And that took more like 10 minutes. So there were several levels too. No, those are not the only options. From what I hear, I hear there's a lot more options than that. And I've heard it from a locutionist. Her name is Anne. And she wrote The Mist of Mercy, among other things. She's the author of Direction for Our Times. She's Catholic, and this is her Catholic understanding of it. In her experience, there were a lot of good people that were in several different levels of what the Mormons might call the spirit world and what Anne calls purgatory. So there's a lot of different personal styles of purgatory. Is that all burning in fire? Now, so for me, I I was I have said before that I went to the top and bottom levels of purgatory, but I would say that those were a couple of different styles of purgatory. I'd rather say that, you know. Um, but I've called it the top and bottom levels of purgatory because that's the only way that some people can wrap their head around calling it purgatory. But even in the Catholic world before Anne, the old Catholic world, different styles of purgatory were mentioned, and they weren't all torture chambers. So some of them were just, required to do their unfinished business of growing up, as it were, and reflecting upon their lives in spirit worlds. So when we've received, as Catholics, we've received apparitions from the beyond that were unhappy. It could be, God's way of trying to straighten us out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the majority of us have an unhappy experience of continuing to grow up after this life. It could just, when we hear about the unhappy ones, it could be God's way of trying to straighten us out, to get us to avoid those painful purgatories. Or also to get the people on earth to pray for those who have gone beyond. And I think that you can pray for the deceased at their funerals. I think it's only appropriate to do that. But after that, to pray for them by name, I wouldn't. I would pray for them in general. And, how can you avoid praying for them by name if you're psychologically attached to them? But it's, after a while, I think it's best just to pray in general for the souls in purgatory sooner than not. Pray for our beloved dead, and not and for souls in general who have no one to pray for them. So we pray in general for souls who have gone beyond, and we should do a lot of praying for them. The rosary, or other prayers that are directly through Jesus. But if you pray for them by name, you could be, it's almost like a form of necromancing. You could be, putting yourself at risk. So I wouldn't do that. I think that it's probably teetering on disobedience, but you could certainly pray for the souls in general. And, of course, pray for them by name at their funerals, of course. So that's all I have to say on that. I don't want people to think that I, advocate damning souls to hell for all eternity in a habitual manner. And I know there's a lot of that kind of talk here on YouTube, and these are my thoughts on it. And yeah, I'm tempted to think the way they think on YouTube just because I'm getting that kind of information poured into my head. But I think I erred more on the side of mercy, and believing that God was a God of mercy, and assumed that he was more of a creative God with creative solutions, as opposed to this tyrannical torture from the sky that maybe the Romans made up.